The COVID-19 outbreak brought along global business and economic disruption, fear and uncertainty. Here to share their experiences is our very own pastor, a church member, parent, teacher, frontliner, and a business owner. I am Tammy Marsham.
And I'm Calron Baylott.
And you're watching CBLink.
Here with us today is Pastor Virgil Sams, and he's the pastor of the Colby and St. Peter's Seventh-day Adventist churches.
Pastor Sam, it's a privilege to have you here with us.
As the pastor, how are you comforting your members during the COVID-19 pandemic, besides their spiritual needs? Because as much as their spiritual needs ought to be met, the emotional and physical needs must also be met.
Well, that's a very important question indeed as to how is the pastor comforting the members. Now, first of all, this was a pandemic that we did not foresee coming to our district or coming to the church. However, now that it is here, we are doing our utmost best to stay in touch with our members, especially with the pandemic, with the lockdown, where members are not able to congregate as we once used to. However, we are thankful for the communication department that is so actively involved in assisting to ensure that we have online services so that our members can be spiritually fed. Now, we've also asked with regards to how are we meeting the emotional needs of members. And of course, whereas members are not really accustomed of staying home during service time, but because of the pandemic, we are all forced to do so. But thank God, things are opening up now. But during the time when we had the total lockdown, where members are not accustomed to be at home during the worship services, many times I would call members. I also encourage the elders as well to make contact with members, to stay connected with members, to encourage them along, and to ensure that they are emotionally satisfied. Also, with regards to the pandemic, it has also caused lots of loss of jobs of members. We have members who have lost their jobs, and this has caused much stress to members. I'm so thankful for the COVID task force that was created that was set up by the board, who is very actively involved in helping to meet the physical needs of members. In a short while from now, we'll be seeing the COVID task force as they are in the process of ordering food items so that we can ensure that our members, especially those that are in need, will be fed. Also the community as well. And so, the church is doing its best to ensure that members are not only spiritually satisfied, but also emotionally and physically and socially satisfied as well. And so I'm so thankful for the leadership of the church that is also playing a very major role in helping to ensure that members are well spiritually fed and emotionally fed. I'm also thankful to the AY department of the church, and I must say that the AY department is doing a tremendous work. And just today I heard great commendation given by the North Caribbean Conference on behalf of the AY department that seemed to be really reaching a large spectrum of the community, not only locally but abroad as well.
Amen to that, and I believe that as a church it is our duty to build bridges with our community and to assist wherever possible. It was business as usual on March 18th until we received the news. There'll be no school for 2 weeks. And here to share her experience as a teacher is teacher Trisha James. Now, teacher James, what was it like switching from a physical classroom to a virtual one?
switching from the teaching and learning experience from a physical classroom that is one where that is tangible, one where you could see the students, to a virtual classroom, meaning you only have access to the students from behind of a computer screen, was not really a difficult transition for me, because as we all know, students are digital natives, and we ought to use tools, technological tools, to prepare them for real-world experiences. And so that transition was not a bad one for me. As a matter of fact, virtual learning has forced my students to become proficient at Microsoft Word, and they are also becoming more critical thinkers, and they are becoming better as they conduct research.
What do you prefer? Standing physically in front of your classroom or virtual learning?
I definitely prefer virtual learning, as it leverages the best technology to make learning an easier and more convenient for the students and myself as a teacher. Now, I'm not saying this because I love technology. It's not really the same for everybody, but most definitely I believe that because of this pandemic, the face of education will never be the same.
I agree with you. During the pandemic, the lockdown, our frontliners, doctors, nurses, firefighters, police officers, they still attended to their duties. And I'm pretty sure that there were some form of standard or some protocol that they would have followed, especially if these frontliners had families. Would you agree?
Yes.
So Dr. Douglas, what were some of the coordinated and standardized communication systems or protocols that the frontliners had to follow to ensure their safety, that of their colleagues, and the public of which they dealt with?
I find that the government and also where I work, they have taken great care and have gone to great length to ensure that all frontliners, workers are protected. They have ensured that all equipments were in place. And I want to say thank you to all of them. As long as you adhere to the indicated instructions, you will be safe. And naturally, we have to depend and trust in God, because He's the one who ultimately keeps us safe. Thank you.
You know, ladies, there are also other frontliners, because what about the men that baked our bread? The persons that picked up our garbages? The nurses at the Basilia Center? So we can't really classify a frontliner as a police officer alone, or a firefighter, or a nurse at the hospital. What do you think?
I agree. I totally agree with you. I suggest these people were actually at the front of the line. Mm-hmm. They jeopardized or put their health behind, and on the forefront, they focused on seeing to it that society was kept as it should be.
Yes, most definitely. And we would like to say to all our frontliners, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Yes.
We appreciate the work that you have done, and we send lots of love your way. Thank you once again.
Because you know what it is to wake up in the morning. You have to get up early while your family is sleeping, go to work, and come back home, and your family has to be worrying if you come home with the virus.
Yes.
You know, so we really want to say thank you to all our frontliners.
And I know some frontliners who followed a certain method when returning home. The removal of shoes, the removal of the clothes that they wore. I know my mom had been doing a face steam. I'm not sure who did face steam, but I was doing a face steam whenever I left the house. So all of these we need to take into consideration as well.
Sister Stanford, as a church member, you were not able to attend church for 2.5 months, but rather to, join our Sundays, Wednesdays, and Sabbath services. So what was your experience like? And do you find that the online services were beneficial?
Yes, I find that the online services were beneficial. I enjoyed the services online. We were able to see and experience the creativity and talents of the members. It was a different experience. It was another way to worship.
I will be honest with you. I did not miss attending church in the church building. I really did enjoy the services online. I'm not sure who else feels the same.
Well, it was something different. We wasn't really physically in the church, but I felt like I was physically in the church still. Because the services, they provided that feeling. It was very intense and I loved it.
I also think that the online services, it reminded me that I was not alone.
Amen.
Sometimes you feel stressed, and when you hear stories of what other people went through, that was a marker for me. And it comforted me to help me to understand that, hey, other people, they're going through what you're going through, and they're using coping mechanisms.
Oh yes. As Kelron mentioned, our church has Sunday, Wednesday, and Sabbath services online, and we also provide the AY services online as well. Last week, Sabbath, we featured Cooking with the Brothers. Now, Kelron, who was in Cooking with the Brothers, can you share your experience with us?
It wasn't easy, cooking in front of everyone, because, some persons, they don't want too much of cheese, or they didn't want too much of the olives I had, but, it was a great experience, and I'm glad I shared how to make my homemade pizza with others. It was really amazing.
That's good. I am proud of you, and I am proud of the other young men who took on the challenge. Every Sabbath afternoon, we feature AY online, so please log in to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, and just stay tuned for Live It.
Yes. And it was not easy on Sabbath mornings. I'm accustomed of waking up at 8 a.m. Sabbath mornings, I would still get up, Mommy, we have to go to church. Get up. But as the Sabbaths go on, I gradually adjusted myself to staying home, and it was amazing.
So I believe you're looking forward to the church reopening on June 6th.
Oh yes, I'm ready.
I'll be home. Pastor, before the total shutdown, before the Prime Minister issued a complete shutdown, stipulations were given by the government.
Yes.
Can you notify us as to what those stipulations were and whether the church added to those stipulations to ensure the safety of its members?
Yes, as a church leader, we are very much aware of the stipulations that were given by the government. And of course, as a church, it is important that we adhere to the guidelines that were given by the government, and by no means we would want to be held in contempt of violating any of these stipulations in terms of the church services. Now, we were told at one point that the church services were limited to only 50 when the pandemic just started, and we did our best to uphold that standard, those guidelines. And at the same time, when we were totally locked down, we had to apply for special permission to be able to travel. And I'm very thankful that it's a part of the communication department. They were very actively involved in working along with me to ensure that the services are held. And I want to say great thanks to our communication department, Sister Latoya, Brother Kelron, and his sister Tanya. We want to say thanks to them for the fine work that they have been doing thus far. And even though we had the lockdown, we are very thankful that we were still able to minister to our brethren effectively through the communication department, that we were able to help hold the services. And yes, we did comply very, very good with the government, even though they have given us those stipulations of being locked down, that we were not able to hold any services whatsoever in our churches. But at the same time, we were given the permission to just be at the church to ensure that we have online services.
That brings me to my second question, Pastor.
Yes.
With the online services, it's pretty obvious that what we used to do in church would not be applicable for our online services. So my question to you is, did you encounter difficulties when rearranging the church service to fit our online viewing?
Well, one of the things about the online services Now, as pastors, as leaders, we were not trained to have online services as such as to online evangelistic meetings and services. Now, it calls for much adjustment with what has transpired. And so as a church, we had to adjust with the online services. That would mean that, we would not be able to have the online services in a normal fashion, a normal manner in which we normally would have had our services. So you would find lots of segments of the service would have to be cut in order to accommodate a smooth flow of the worship service. And even as we are about to resume our worship services, we were also given guidelines that we would not be able to have our services for more than 90 minutes. And so that would mean that we would have to cut out a lot of the preliminaries that we normally would have in our services so that we can have our services in an effective manner in terms of taking out, some even the call to worship, part of the welcome that we normally have and some of the inspiration during the song service period or the praise team period. We will have to really cut some of these areas so that we can effectively place in the aspect of the word, a presentation of the word as such.
Going to work every day and listening to the government saying that, stipulations of businesses have to be closing down every day. It was really tough as a business employee.
I could imagine. Sister Elcock, did you have a crisis management plan in place? One that addresses the well-being of yourself, your employees, clients, and safeguard your finances? Because I'm pretty sure it was indeed as a business owner.
Seeing it happen almost suddenly, there wasn't much planning that could be done. But before the closure, some preventative measures were put in place to help alleviate the spread of the COVID-19. These preventative measures are simple things that we do on a daily basis at the facility, being that it is a daycare, such as washing hands more often, cleaning the facility more frequently, and insisting that parents with ill children keep them at home. Seeing as though that this business thrives on the funds received monthly from its clientele, it was kind of hard to safeguard our funds and our finances. Because let's be real, how could I ask my clients to pay a fee monthly for a service that they were not receiving?
Well, thank you, Sister Elcock, for your response. But as an employee, a former employee, it's very difficult to lose your job during these circumstances, and it was not easy at all. So, you have to grasp yourself at staying at home and the fact that you're not working anymore. So I could, sympathize with anyone else that really lost their job throughout this pandemic, because it was not easy at all.
Well, my husband, he lost his job as a result, but thankfully, as business began to pick up, and he is not only a dive master, he is a carpenter. His employer called him and requested that he work and do some carpentry on the business. And that's why we were able to generate some income as a result.
Yeah, it's sad that a few individuals suffered a great deal in terms of losing their job because they're not able to put food on the table for their family. Yeah. Some who have mortgages to pay. So I really do sympathize with them.
What was your first reaction when you heard a decree from the government that all businesses must be closed?
Well, as a person that works with children between the ages of 0 to 4, I was somewhat relieved and yet somewhat reluctant. Relieved because we were hearing about the causes of the COVID-19 worldwide and what was happening. And children, being vulnerable as they are, it would be safer for them to be at home to help to avoid the spread of COVID-19 to those around them. Reluctant in the sense that parents were still working because schools were the first establishments, and parents were stuck with the dilemma of what would I do with my child. Also, it meant that a great loss for my establishment as a daycare caregiver director.
So Teacher James, you're actually privileged to be a teacher and a parent. So as a parent, what are your concerns about the impact of the pandemic on your children's education, and how did you cope with the changes?
Well, despite the fact that I share many advantages of the virtual learning, the pandemic has had a very tremendous impact on my children. And we know that, as a matter of fact, I should say that to our viewers that when we speak of education, we're speaking of holistic education. So they might not have been affected academically, but socially they were affected. They were not able to engage in extracurricular activities such as soccer and swimming as a result, because everybody was on lockdown, and that impacted them greatly because they were not able to meet with their friends and converse and collaborate and have fun. However, my daughter, she decided to, form a Zoom meeting. And as we know, technology, they are natives, right?
Yes.
And she decided to do a Zoom conference with her cousins from around the world.
Nice.
And they were not able to swim, nor were they able to play soccer, but they were able to play some indoor games, and I think it's helped. That has helped.
Oh, very much so. My daughter, as you said, they're natives of technology. So my daughter became a baker during the pandemic on her own. So she would Google. Yes, she baked cake, pineapple, she baked cookies. She made her own.
Nice.
She just, so there are students and children in general around the world who are making good use of the opportunity being home.
So we can conclude then that the negatives of the pandemic is actually less than the advantages. So the advantages outweigh the cons. And that's good.
That is true. Now, how did you manage preparing assignments for your students and seeing to it that your children completed their own assignments?
Well, I think you would think that I am crazy if I were to say that I actually tried splitting myself into several individuals, because, as rightly stated, I am a parent. I am also a teacher. I'm a husband. I'm a wife. Sorry. I'm a wife, and my days spent myself, as I said, and but as the days get better, the weeks as it go by, I am now able to set schedules and my Zoom meetings for my students. I ensure that it is actually after my children, my biological children, has had their Zoom sessions, and I ensure that there's a time limit, there's a time frame in which assignments should be completed, handed in, and time for me to meet with my students, and so forth. And because of the time management strategies that I have adapted for myself and my children, it's working pretty much.
So Sister Stanford, church will be opened on the 6th of June, as we know. What regulations would you like to see put in place to ensure your safety and the safety of the members in church?
It's great to know that the church doors will be opening, but we still have to limit the attendance, make sure we keep our distance in order to respect the safety measures.
Seeing that church is reopening on June 6th, as a church leader, what regulations, a part of which the government has set, will the church put in place to ensure and maintain the safety of its members?
Well, as a church, we are ensuring that we adhere to the guidelines that was given by the government, and also working in collaboration with the government as well. Some of the guidelines that the government gave for church opening was to ensure that we have hand sanitizers placed at each door of entrance, and also to put markings on the floor so that folks will know where to walk, because there will be a one-way walking into the church and a one-way exit. And so we will ensure that all these guidelines are kept. And we're also told that we would worship for at least 90 minutes. And we have already worked it out so that we know which area to leave out from which we normally would include in our service, so that we could ensure that we work within the time frame that was given by the government. And so far, I must say that the task force is doing a very fine work to ensure that the guidelines are kept for reopening. And I know that members are also looking forward to the opening of the church as well. And we're certainly looking forward to greeting all the members that we haven't seen for quite some time.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So we'd like to thank everyone that participated in CBLink today.
Oh, yes. We would like to say a big thank you to our district pastor, Pastor Virgil Sams, pastor of District 2, which comprises of the Colby and St. Peter's Seventh-day Adventist Church. A big thank you to our teacher and parent, Sister Tricia James. Thank you to our frontliner, Dr. Ruth Douglas. Thank you to our church members, Sister J.T. Stanford. Thank you to our business owner, Sister Lisa Elcock. Am I forgetting anyone?
I think so.
No? Yes. So a big thank you to all of you.
Thank you for watching CBLink. Tune in
Every Thursdays at 7.
Let's go, Kevin. No, there's nothing.
It's you know.
Sit outside.
Okay, let's go.
Need something?
Don't stop it. Let me go. See you in that church. Okay.
Take it off. Oh, we are also looking forward to having.
That's what I wanted to ask if you didn't want to stop.
I prefer virtual learning hands down. You see, the reason I like. Okay, go ahead.
No. I'm still.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought along global. For CBLink, thank you for watching.
Stop.
And
Please stop it. Tune into our online services on Sundays, Mondays.
Sundays, Wednesdays.
Thank you, Sister Bancote.
And the remedy, Jesus' blood and the remedy. Jesus sing, sweet, sweet remedy. Jesus' blood and the remedy. Jesus' blood and the remedy. Jesus' blood and the remedy.